Hi you guys, I'm back with another video. This is Casey with the Compass Circle, and today we're going to be discussing how I landed my first $5.5 million contract. For those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, about 4 months ago I was awarded a $5.5 million transportation contract. And so this video is going to discuss, how I was able to land that contract, what the contract is for, and just, what that means in terms of when you land a sizable contract of that nature. For those of you who don't know, I'm Casey with the Compass Circle. I'm a federal contractor, which means that I just provide the government with goods and services specifically. That is the only customer I have. That's the largest customer in the world. And for anybody who is, wanting to be in business or, if you are already in business and you are a minority company, I would strongly suggest that you contract your services to the government. It's a very heightened, turned up, very, very lucrative, way to do business. It is unlike any other business on the planet. And it's very lucrative. And so I teach people how to use the fact that they are small businesses and that they are minorities to get into these, multi-million-dollar positions like I am. So just to give you a little bit of background, you guys, I started off with one truck in 2006. And from 2006 until now, I was able to scale up my business and, win these contracts and or have the government give them to me. There are some contract vehicles that you can have that the government is able to just literally call you and say, hey, do you want this contract? So I have a couple of those certifications and it has worked very well for me. And I teach, businesses how to do the same thing. So let's get into how I was able to win my first $5.5 million contract. So initially, this right now is November 2019. We just had Thanksgiving was yesterday. So we're going to flash back to February of this year. So earlier this year, the government put out what's called an RFI. An RFI means request for information. And they had this huge transportation job, and they put out an RFI for companies who were interested in the job. Of course, I'm interested in the job. And so I responded to the notice by just giving them some general information on me, my company, my background, what certifications I had, and, my level of interest in this particular job. This particular job was a job where you had to provide transportation to and from school for about 300 school-aged children, from elementary school all the way to high school. And I was like, okay, I can handle that. No big deal. So I submitted some information to them. Now, again, this was back in February. We're in November now. Okay, so also the way the government works is you may not hear from them for months, months, years maybe. And so I'm going on about my regular life. And so I knew I had been bidding. I had been putting out, good seeds. And I knew I was due to have something pop out of the ground for me. I kept saying to one of my good friends, I'm like, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? I'm putting out these notices. I'm showing up. I'm doing the work. I'm teaching these people. But where's my stuff? I knew I was due something. So in typical, government fashion, I get an email in July. It's like the middle of July. And the government basically says to me, hey, in regard to the notice and the RFI that you submitted, we are going to schedule what's called a capability briefing in regard to this job. A capability briefing just means that you have given the government some type of information, whether it be a capability statement, a website, some kind of write-up about, you going after a certain job that they have available. And so they're going to call you in and you're going to sit there and discuss who, what, when, where, why, and how. And so that's basically what a capability briefing is. So they came back and they said, okay, well, in 2 days, we need you to come up here and have a capability briefing with us. Now, mind you guys, I live in Virginia. And I had to go up to D.C. for this meeting. Now, D.C. is about 3.5 hours away, so I was not thrilled to have to go up there with a 2-day notice. I do have two, children. One is 8 and one is 12. And at the time, they were in, regular private school. So I wasn't happy about having to, rearrange my life and go to D.C. on a whim. But I was willing to do it. So I told them, hey, I'll be up there in 2 days. We can talk about it. Fine. The next day I get an email in typical government fashion, and the email says, we are canceling the capability briefing. And instead of, having the capability briefing, we're setting this job aside for 8A firms only, and you have 2 days to bid it. Now, them setting the job aside for an 8A firm, I kind of knew at that point I had it, because I am 8A certified, and 8A certified is a certification that allows the government to just call you and give you a job $7 million or less. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm talking about it again, but I'm a real life, real time example of what that looks like. So that's how I was able to land this job under that certification. I'll get into some of the requirements a little bit later, and I'll try to leave a link below. I'm not really up on all the YouTube things, but I'll just, try to do what I can. So anyways, they set it aside for 8A, and I'm like, okay, but I have 2 days to bid this thing. Now, the job requires us having the use of 11 or 12 school buses to get these children to school every day. Now, I didn't have the buses, so I had to be very quick, and I had to be very crafty in terms of how I was going to put this project together. Me being me, I went back to the original email that the government first sent out, and I looked at the companies whose names were on the email to see who was interested and to see who actually had buses. So once I got the email addresses, I was able to get the company names, and through the company names, I was able to call and see, first of all, who was even interested, because I think it was about 4 or 5 companies. Like one company was like, he doesn't have enough buses at the time. I think another company said no. So there were like 3 other companies I had to pick from. And then to see who was willing to play, who was willing to get involved, because when you have these contracts, you're involved with people, you're in bed with people. So you have to, be willing to see who's willing to do what. And we didn't have much time, so this was going rather fast. I found a gentleman who had been in business for 20 years up in that area, so I got in my car, and I rushed to D.C. to go meet him. And I actually flew in my project manager from Texas also because at this level, you just don't want to rely on your own eyes and your own ears. You want to really have somebody around you who's of sound mind and good, wise counsel. So you always want to make sure you have another pair of hands helping. So I flew Brooke in, and we went to go meet my sub, and, it went rather well. We negotiated. He took us to his office. He showed us his lot where he had multiple commercial vehicles. And we basically agreed to work together. So I was able to get pricing from him. And through his pricing, I was able to add my pricing and turn that into the government. I told Brooke, I said, Brooke, we have this. Like, I just knew it. I knew I had been doing my work. I knew I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I just knew I was going to get it. And so in typical government fashion, about 3 days later, they send me a notice saying, hey, can you give us extra pricing because we have to add some kids or some routes or whatever. At that point, I kind of knew I had it. And then, of course, after that, I got the email saying, you've been awarded the contract, XYZ, yada, yada, yada. The thing about this contract was this is all happening in the middle of July. And so school actually the end of July. And school actually started at the end of August. So I had like 2 weeks to find a partner, find these buses, find drivers, and to get the routes and to get all these things in place for these kids to, go to school. So I did not get the route until the Sunday. The school started on August the 26th. I didn't get the routes for the bus drivers until August the 25th. So literally I was thrown into this, you guys. And that's kind of how it went. That was my first $5.5 million contract. My contracts went the first one was $100,000. That was a state contract. My first federal contract was $50,000. My second one was $80,000, and my fourth contract was $5.5 million. And that is through the 8A certification that we talked about earlier. The 8A program is a 9-year program. And so, again, it allows the government to give you the option to bypass the bidding process, and the government can call you and give you a job $7 million or less. That's significant exponential growth. I'm telling you, it literally takes a little company like this big and it turns you up into like a multi-conglomerate contracting beast of a company. You have 9 years to make as much money as you possibly can. You will get kicked out. If you make $100 million, you will get kicked out. So that's astronomical growth. But I know some women who have, 200 employees and they have skyscraper buildings. I know some women who have 750 million contracts and they work from home. So it just depends on what you like, what you want your life to look like. For me right now, my kids are relatively small. I have them in homeschool. So my focus is, their education and their studies and my businesses and my travel and growing my businesses also. So right now, I don't really want a multi-conglomerate, skyscraper office. It's not what I'm into. But the option is yours. We do, at the Compass Circle, we do help you with 8A certifications. Some of the requirements are you have to show a disparity. So being a minority company is a disparity. Having a criminal background is a disparity. you just things of that nature. Also, they want to see that you are actually managing a legitimate company. So they want to see that you're making some money. You also cannot exceed around the $250,000 mark. I made a little bit more than that when I was in. So again, there's ways to kind of get around that. But again, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to get growth in your company, good organic growth, to where you can land these contracts and predict your projections for the next, few years to come. And, it's a beautiful thing. February will be the beginning of my 3rd year. And so I have another 6 years in the program. There's all kind of ways to make money with companies. You can partner, you can mentor protege, you can joint venture, you can team. You can do all kind of things through the 8A certification. So it's a wonderful way to just literally, go from zero to a multi-million-dollar contract. I mean, hey, I did it. So that's how I won my first $5.5 million contract, you guys. If you have any questions, you can schedule a consultation with me at www.thecompasscircle.com. My IG is at The Compass Circle. My Facebook is The Compass Circle. My Twitter, The Compass Circle. And my email address is thecompasscircle@gmail.com if you guys have any questions. Subscribe, share this video, circulate it around to any business owners that you know, especially woman business owners. To be a Black woman is a double minority. So that's a status that will allow the government also to give you contracts, a woman-owned certification. That is how I got my first 2 contracts. I'll do another video on that later, you guys. But for now, this is Casey with The Compass Circle. Season's greetings, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.